how's everybody doing? It is Father's Day weekend, and working on replacing the bumper that we messed up in Ohio. So to get started, I cut out some 4" by 6" plates that will end up replacing the factory bumper mounts that go in here. Alright, so we'll use those 4 plates. For now, they are just going to bolt to the back of the Jeep. The 2 extra plates will eventually tie into the hitch receiver mount and frame stiffeners and everything underneath. So I'm just making 4 so that way everything's spaced correctly. And then we brought over, we got Dustin's 1.5" mandrel bender hydraulic setup, and I am borrowing a 1.5" continuous radius bender, because I know these Jeep XJs look square, but everything actually has a gradual radius to it, so completely unnecessary, but I'm trying to sort of make the best of it. See here, I bent up the outer rear bumper, and it has a continuous, nice gradual radius across the top, and then 4.5" radius bends coming up around the body. So, sort of got that planned out. We'll be doing some dimple die work, and right now I'm just working on those tie-in brackets. So, up next, I'm going to drill those 4 plates, so that way they line up with the threaded holes in the body. We'll be doing that on the Bridgeport mill, and I will catch up with you as soon as I finish that up. Okay, so I drilled 8 holes in each one of these plates, all 4 of them. Now I'm going to come back with an end mill and slot out the middle so it matches the factory with a little bit of adjustment. Nothing too precise, just transferred measurements with a Sharpie. Alright, so from scrap plate we cut out 4 plates, drilled 8 holes in each one and slotted them. And now we're going to bolt them to there. Hopefully our bolts are long enough to get started today. And then we'll start working on the outrigger that comes out to meet the tube. The sheet metal is a little boogered up from putting on the unibody stiffeners. Definitely need some longer ones. Some observations. Alright, so these are bolted on. This is what the bumper is going to weld to. The back plate is what's going to tie into the frame stiffeners. This is already sitting on the bottom, so I want to make sure if I'm planning on having any adjustment, I'm either going to need to build it low so it can move up, or I'm going to need to shave some off the bottom of those. Same thing on this side. This back plate sort of fit the worst, but this will all be covered up, and none of it's perfect, and that's okay. Okay, so here's the bar I bent up on camera the other day. I didn't show it because it's been such a long time since I bent tube. I just needed to focus and figure out what I was doing. So fortunately I got it on, I guess, yeah, on the first try. I should call this the lower quarter panel cut and fold, and they'll come to this body line. When I did it, I was still running the stock fender flares, so I stayed a little bit higher, and use good paint when you do it, because obviously my spray paints didn't do a good enough job. But that's about the level that I'm looking for and the amount of standoff. So now we got to find out if the tubing I have is going to be long enough, and honestly I'm thinking it's going to be a little short. Let's see what we get into. I have this 2 pieces of 2x6 that I had left over from the rock sliders, and they are 8 3/8, and we're going to need something that comes out to 7. All right, so that'll work out. On these pieces, we're going to be hole sawing an 1.5" hole that's flush with this, and then this will get tapered down to wherever the lower tube is, and this will get cut to 4 inches. So we're going to take our time with this. I'm going to do minimal cuts and leave as much of this intact until I find out exactly what I need. And then this will get capped. We'll cap this off on the end and be putting some sort of D-ring. We'll make it all rigid, so that way once the frame tie-ins are in, if you're pulling on these as a recovery point, it's all the way back into where the frame and the hitch tie in, and should be super solid. Sorry about the Fab Rat shirt. My branding stuff was dirty, so just supporting other channels. All right, so here's the setup. This is gonna be the top hole where the main part of the bumper tube comes through. So I'm flush with this edge and flush with this edge. Everything's clamped down straight to the table because my vise wasn't big enough, and I made sure I wasn't gonna hit that. Got the first cut through these. Probably need one more cut to tighten up that gap since there's a slight roll on this front of the tube, but start to get an idea. All right, so this is the tube, or the hole for the lower tube that we just laid out. The 2x6 tube I cut on the angle here, made it 3.5 inches wide, and I placed it on the back of the Jeep, got it all leveled and squared up, and tacked it on. So it's actually holding up its own weight now. You can see I've got about, I don't know, 1/4 inch gap on each side. Everything's following the body lines really nice. So, pretty happy with it so far. So the next decision here is on this lower tube. Do I come up at an angle, which I think is what I want to do, or do I bend like that, which is a little more, technically might be a little stronger, but less clearance and everything. Here, you can see the amount of stick out. It's a little bit more than stock. I am flush with the receiver tube, and you can see that constant radius bend matching the back of the tailgate. There'll be dimple die panels that go in to fill everything in. So it should do a good job of keeping me off the trees. Alright, so I'm not sure exactly what angle I need here. So I'm going to take this pretty easy. Right now it's about 6. Go up to about 16 on the top, 6.6. It's got about 3 degrees of spring back, so we'll go to 16.6. That'll be about a 7-degree angle. It lays out on the ground about 10 degrees on each one of these. So I think at this point, I'm gonna clamp it up there and kind of see what we're dealing with. Figure out how to make it come into that. Alright, so this is looking pretty decent. This bend needs to be increased until it intersects with that tube. See, from this angle then it'll intersect right into here, which will not be a straight notch. Okay, may have figured something out. So this blue line represents the top of the lower tube. This represents the top of the bumper. That mark is where the vertical upright is. This represents the outer tube. So I double checked. I got 65 I got 65 degrees when I was measuring on the vehicle, and laying it out like this, I'm at a little shy, about a degree shy of that. So I'm glad I laid it out. So I think I might even be able to use this to help cut the tube and notch it. So we're gonna go ahead and put that bend in it. We got this lock, so we'll match it to that, and then do that on both ends, and then probably not making too much noise tonight. So tomorrow I will try to notch that to that position. So I don't know. We'll see, one step at a time. All right, new day in the shop. I was thinking a little bit more about this lower tube here. this is the bottom tube on the bumper, and it comes up into this joint, and notching that was going to be really tricky to be able to get it in. So I did know that I wanted to run another tube from here to here, because there's going to be dimple die sheet metal that goes in here. So started notching that out, short piece, and it kind of comes into the bend, so it's a little bit tricky. And then one thing I want to point out, you see the 4 mounting holes are right there, so I can't cover it up. So this is what I came up with. I guess you'd say I coped another tube into it that way, so that way there's good access to the bolt through the bumper. And then I'll just have to be careful with my sheet metal. I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like, but so this is all going to tie in at it's all going to, where this tube terminates is where this lower tube is going to come up and bend into that termination too. So in order to cope that, I'm over here. I don't have a notcher, so I'm just doing it here on the Bridgeport. All right, so we got this D-bird, and then just pop in our piece of tubing, put strength back into it, tap it in, and then it'll all get welded. So once again, giving us hopefully good access to that. So I think I'm going to try to get these all lined up and tacked in here. All right, so I got the tubes welded in there and the bars tacked in. Pretty happy with it. Haven't decided if I'm going to bother running a tube the whole way through here. From a structural standpoint, I don't know that it would do a whole lot, but if I do, I will probably need to do another one of these bumps just to keep it symmetrical. So, a little bit of progress. I call it a night a little earlier tonight, try to get some good rest. That way I can tackle that more complicated notch on this lower piece tomorrow.